Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news this Sunday morning. Welcome to the Members Club. Mohammed, you're very welcome. Thanks for supporting the channel. Lots to get into this morning. I always enjoy the Sunday morning transfer show because it's traditional for me. I used to get the Sunday papers when you were a kid, News of the World, Sunday Mail and all that lot. And you sometimes get different stories, and we've certainly got some different stories for you this morning. Mason Greenwood, Italy, Jose Mourinho. We've got talks on sales. We've got a really obscure story about Tchouaméni and Manchester United. But the bottom line is, and I'm sure many of you saw the video with Faz last night, United's transfer window is descending into crisis. A story this morning from the Manchester Evening News saying that we want to keep Scott McTominay because of his age. I mean, the mind boggles on that because it's not the first time we've heard that United will probably keep McTominay because of his age. I mean, I tell you what, if you're judging things on age, you're going to be very, very disappointed in life because it doesn't necessarily mean something's better. Certainly not. I mean, if I go in my fridge and I've got a pucker pie that I bought from Sainsbury's a few days ago for my lunch, but then Mrs. Goldbridge has gone and brought something that's fresher and newer, like a Scotch egg, I want the pucker pie. It might be older in the fridge, but it's better. It doesn't matter about when you bought it or what the age is. So, yeah, we'll get into that. But look, we're going to start also a bit about David De Gea as well. I mean, it's ridiculous. I just think Man United's transfer window is in danger of becoming an embarrassment due to the ownership, as we already know, because other clubs are just doing better. I think people, keep up the good work, says Liam. I think people are forgetting that Newcastle have bought Tonali. Like, what a signing that is. Tonali is a better signing than Mason Mount. I like Mason Mount, but Tonali's a proper midfielder. The problem with that is, can he adapt to the Premier League? The problem with Mount is, can he get over last season? So I think Newcastle have already arguably done a better signing than us. Liverpool have done two better signings than us, arguably. But it is about Arsenal are doing really, really well. So, you know, you've got clubs showing major ambition to try and stop one of the best teams that's ever played in Man City. And United are making decisions about keeping Scott McTominay because of his bloody age. I mean, you're never going to move forward as a football club, seriously, if you are keeping people because you can't afford other people and he's younger than Fred. I'd keep Fred anyway. Keep it the good work, says Liam. Thank you very much. But let's hit the headlines here. So we're here to hit the headlines. We can talk about that other bit in a little bit. But this is coming in from... where's it coming in from? I think it's coming in from the Sun this morning, actually. It's around Mason Greenwood. And they seem to have... I don't know why, but they do seem to have reasonable... information around Mason Greenwood. So Jose Mourinho has reached out to Mason Greenwood regarding a possible loan move to Roma next season. Remember I said to you on Friday, in the next 7 days, we will get a decision made on Mason Greenwood. I don't think this is the decision, but I think this is where it's heading. So Italy has always been a place that Mason Greenwood has been, had options. And I think it's the best place for him to go because you go Turkey, the standard of football compared to Serie A, with all due respect, is better in Italy. So I think Italy would be a better move for him. And also as a forward player, it's a little bit more technical. So I think it'd be good for him. Mason Greenwood doesn't think a new start at Man United is likely, despite Erik ten Hag and several teammates offering him their support. Well, I think this is dangerous. And I think the club might act on this sooner rather than later because, unfortunately, this sort of story isn't, well, it's not true, and also it's not doing Eric any favours because there are a lot of people in the United fan base who have very strong feelings about whether Mason Greenwood should be wearing a Man United shirt in the near future. They've got very strong opinions on it based on their interpretation of what was seen and heard a year ago. And therefore, they feel that the Manchester United manager should not be having little secret conversations about how he would like Mason Greenwood back because ultimately he's Manchester United manager and he should have a stronger stance on this. The thing I would say is that at no point has Erik ten Hag publicly said that he wants Mason Greenwood back in his team tomorrow. At no point has Erik ten Hag said, I absolutely think Mason Greenwood's a top guy and he's not done any of the things that he was accused of. He's a really good guy. No, he hasn't said those things. So I think Man United will at some point have to address these sort of stories, because it makes it sound like Ten Hag is saying, I want Greenwood back in my team. I don't care what he's accused of. I don't care what he did. I want him in my team. All I care about is football. I've got absolutely no morals. I'm not bothered. I think that's dangerous for our manager, and it's not actually what's been said. What I understand is going on with Mason Greenwood is what I've said should happen. It's what some of you think should happen. I don't think we should be kicking him out of the club this summer. I think that's stupid from a business point of view at the very basis. And I think he should be going off on loan, because if the long-term plan is to get rid of him anyway, you may as well get a bit of value for him. So, and ultimately, who knows what happens in a year's time? We're going through a sale. He might go to Italy and be crap. He might go to Italy and be good. So I think United will loan him out, and I think an Italian move is sensible. If I was Mason Greenwood, I think Roma works well, because it's Jose Mourinho, who absolutely is the right sort of guy to take a player like this. And obviously Chris Smalling's there, Matic is there. It's a manager he's played with before. I think he needs looking after in relation to his own mental health, Mason Greenwood. And I think, that would be a good place for him to be. And I think it ticks a lot of boxes for everybody. So I don't know whether it will be Roma, but I actually think that would be quite a good move for him. And logically, it's a move that has to happen. I can't see United, we'll know in the next few days, but I think it's the most logical deal. What do you think about reports about the video showing Radcliffe kicking a badger, says Mindful? I've never heard of it, and I guarantee you've just made that up. So yeah, look, I'm not. We're talking about the football side of things here, and obviously you'll get prats in the chat who say put him in the team tomorrow. They've got absolutely no care for anybody other than their own selfish motivations. They actually think you can take a player that's not played for 18 months, that's been through massive publicity, that will get hugely booed, that will get massive mental pressure from coming back to Manchester United. They just think put the generational talent up front and everything will be fine, because they're selfish people who've got absolutely no idea about anything other than the thing that goes on between their ears. Even if you want Greenwood back, you should want him to go on loan, because it's about managing him, it's about managing his mental health, and it's about feeding him back into football. If you want to see him back in a Man United shirt, you're basically just you belong in a coliseum watching gladiators kill themselves. You really are rubberneckers, because it will be horrific. Whether you want it to be or not, it will be horrific. So if you want Mason Greenwood to be playing up front for Manchester United next season, you are a rubbernecker. You are somebody that watches roadkill and stuff like that, because he will be slaughtered. He will be slaughtered by the media. He will be slaughtered by rival fans. He will be slaughtered by some of our own fans. So if you want him back, you need to screw your head on and realise that this is not going to happen next week. This is going to have to happen in 12 months, and he's going to have to go and do a loan deal. So, I think it's the most logical thing. I'll be stunned if United don't do it. That's the indication that we've had, and that's what I said on Friday. In the next 7 days, they'll make a decision, and I think it will be a loan deal, and I think it will be very interesting in a footballing sense. I'm not here to offend. Everyone's got an opinion. In a footballing sense, it'll be very interesting to see what this football player is like next season on loan wherever he is. So let's wait and see. As for, other players in the squad offering him their support, well, there are players at Man United that have offered him support. You can probably guess who they are. There are some players in that squad who don't really want him in the squad. You can probably guess who they are. That's irrelevant, because there's people in the chat who don't want Greenwood in, and there's people in the chat who do want Greenwood in. Pick your side if you want. Have an opinion if you want, but that's just the way it is. Can you please say hi, Rene? Can you hear me? Says Somya. There we go. So yes, let's wait and see what happens with Mason Greenwood. I think that bottom line, I'm tired of talking about this. I'm sure all you are tired of talking about this. Man United need to make a decision on this and move on from it. It's there's at the end of the day, there's a sale going on. There's players that need selling, and there's players that need buying, and it's almost like, why have you just not made a decision on this yet? Get on with it. Simple as. The next departure I want to talk to you about is obviously David De Gea. Congratulations to David. He did get married yesterday. It wasn't to me. I think it's very funny how people have cut out a picture of my head and stuck it on the body of the bride. I didn't go to the wedding, and I'm not married to David De Gea. But congratulations to him. Massive day for him. It's interesting, actually. I mean, look, we just spoke about the mental health of Mason Greenwood there and how you need to manage that if the club are going to keep him as a Man United player, and they absolutely do have a duty of care. But it's interesting from David De Gea's point of view. I knew this, but I'd never really thought about it. Obviously, I think he's got a daughter, and now he's got a wife. But apparently, they live in Spain. So a lot of the time he's in England, his child and partner, now wife, are in Spain. So, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Well, look, everybody's different. Some people can deal with those sort of long-term relationships, can't they? But I suppose you're very, very busy as a footballer as well. But no, I have no comments on it. I was just going to say that. But this is a story coming out as well that the team that Cristiano Ronaldo plays for, Al Nassr, are offering David De Gea 250 grand a week to play in the Saudi Pro League. Now, that would basically be the wage that he's on at United at the moment, because he's on about 350 grand a week. Well, he was on 350 grand a week in England, but our tax is, God, if he's on 350 grand a week, what tax would that be? Higher tax bracket. Is he paying 60% or is it 40%? He's paying a lot. He's paying about half his wages back in tax. You won't even do that. So in Saudi Arabia, I don't think they pay tax. So equivalent of 500 grand a week in UK if he's getting 250k in his pocket. So look, there's very good money for David De Gea to earn in Saudi Arabia. I'm fully expecting David De Gea to leave this week. I think that you know what, and the way I look at it as well is I don't post much, but my God, get these leeches out of our club. I detest them to my bones, says Andy. I think he's talking about the Glazers. I think that if I was David De Gea now, I would look at this and go, look, the club have sort of humiliated me publicly. I don't think the intention was there from the club to do that, but they've handled it badly. They've made it very obvious that Ten Hag wants to change the goalkeeper. David De Gea has to be his own. In life you have to champion yourself if no one else is going to. He will look at it and go, I've been at the club 12 years. I think I've had a good career at Man United. I've just won the Golden Glove. We've had the most clean sheets in the league. And the manager is basically saying he doesn't want me. So I've been sort of humiliated, really. I think I've got to go. And I think he's got to go with this attitude. Manager doesn't really want me. Some of the fans don't really want me. I'm banging my head against the brick wall. They're not going to win the league in the next year or two. They're not going to win the Champions League in the next year or two. And in 2 years, I'm probably done anyway, if I'm not done already. So what am I clinging on to? I've proved myself at Manchester United. I'm not going to get anything more in the next 2 years, really, because they're not going to win the big prizes. So maybe now is the time just to, I'm not going to get my place back in the Spanish team. So maybe now is the time to just go and have a couple of years earning ridiculous money. So I think it's sad in a way, but in another way, it's also, sometimes in life you just got to look at a situation and stop clinging on. And I think that it won't be nice to deal with for a couple of days, but I think, everything good that happens comes from change. Everything bad that happens comes from change. So embrace change. And I think that some of us, we don't want to embrace change. I did it a few weeks ago with De Gea. I didn't want De Gea to go, but I could see it was going to happen. So you embrace the change. I have got no power. I'm not the manager. So I know what's happening because people tell me what's happening and I can see what's happening. So I embrace the change. And Nana to me is, I think he's box office. So I embrace that change. But I think David needs to embrace that change as well and stop clinging on. Ultimately you have been embarrassed, publicly. And maybe embarrassed is a bit of a strong word, but it's certainly been made known that the manager doesn't really rate you as much as he would like. So I think, you've got to look at it and go, now's the time to embrace the change. Do you think the club will get sold before the new season, says Rizzy? I don't know, mate. I don't know. I mean, in relation to the sale, I wasn't going to talk massively about the sale, but I think that we're at that point now where it wouldn't surprise me if on Wednesday we've got an announcement that we're being sold to Qatar. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Christmas Eve and we've still not been sold. So I really just don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen with the sale. And I think, it's the one area where, look, I sort of know what's going to happen with Greenwood. I sort of know what's going to happen with De Gea. I know what's going to happen with Højlund. But I don't know what's going to happen with the sale. And that's just not exclusive to me. That's exclusive to anybody else who gets little snippets of information. Nobody knows what's happening with the sale. It's all over the place, if I'm being honest. Just on the goalkeeper situation, I think it would be remiss of me not to sort of bring this in, which keeps coming out there. Man United have been told by Feyenoord that the goalkeeper Bijlau is not for sale. A serious attempt to sign the keeper is expected, but Feyenoord will likely turn it down. This has been around all weekend, that Manchester United are looking at this particular goalkeeper. Now, I don't know a lot about him. I'll tell you if I know a lot about a player. I don't know a lot about this player. And I think that there's a few people in the chat who are, I think, based in the Netherlands who've said he's not that good. Nace says good, Anana or nothing. Lervish says more Dutch rubbish. Jake says good, he's a fraud. Leeds soon pre-season. Seriously, what are we doing? Says Melps. There's definitely interest in this player from Manchester United. And my only thing I'm going to say is, if we are getting him, he's got to be the reserve goalkeeper. But is his profile good? And, is he not, like Mao says, would he not be a backup? But is he not like a goalkeeper that's looking to build his career out at a team that's just won the league in the Netherlands? Would he be happy to come and be Tom Heaton? Would he be happy to be Thomas Kuszek? Would he be happy to be, Ben Foster when he was at Man United? Romero, is he going to be happy to come and be Man United's second goalkeeper? I know the rumour is that we want Anana and him, but would he be happy to be that? To me, it feels a little bit like he wouldn't. I'm just a little bit worried that he might be the goalkeeper we're going for. Look, we're Manchester United. Sommer says he's rubbish. We're Manchester United. We've got absolutely no idea. I keep getting people saying to me that Dean Henderson could be United's number one next year. If Dean Henderson is Man United's number one next year, I'm going to cry. That, to me, would be ridiculous. The way he's acted over the last year, the fact that Ten Hag's pissed off with him, and the fact that he could be coming back as Man United's number one, would be a massive indicator of how far screwed, nearly back in last night's show there, how screwed Erik Ten Hag is. If he's got, some of the players he's going to have to use if you look at the rumours, some of the players that Erik Ten Hag's going to have to use next season, he doesn't want to use, but he's going to have to use because the budget's not there. I lost myself a little bit last night, but I stand by what I said. Richard Arnold knew a year ago that this summer was going to be hard. So the Glazers knew a year ago that this summer was going to be hard, and they've walked into it for their own selfish reasons because they're still trying to get a little bit more money out of Radcliffe or a little bit of money out of Qatar, and they've walked into this. You know what it is? Basically, in an analogy, they've walked into an ambush, but they knew it was an ambush. We didn't. Ten Hag didn't. They've walked us into an ambush where we're surrounded and we're going to get absolutely battered. And they've walked us in knowing it was an ambush. And that's our owners. Whatever you think of them, they've walked us into an ambush and it's their fault. They knew this. They knew 12 months ago that we were going to have a bad summer transfer window this year. They could have sold the club before it. They could have done things to try and prevent it being a bad summer transfer window. They've walked us straight into it. And that's the owners of Man United. That's the CEO of Manchester United. They've walked us into it. And you know what? I did lose my temper a little bit last night. But, on a calm Sunday morning with a coffee in my hand, I can say that there is visual evidence. He shouldn't have been recorded. It was naughty to do that. But there's anecdotal evidence. And ultimately, Richard Arnold was in a pub with United fans a year ago, almost to the day, and he said, we're all right this summer, but next summer we're basically in trouble. And in 12 months, they've done nothing. The CEO, the director of football, the owners, they've walked us into this transfer window willingly, knowing it was going to be a challenge, when they could have sold the club or they could have put something in place. So, you talk about what's possible this summer transfer window. It's very possible that we start the season with Martial, McTominay, Maguire in the first 11 because you just don't know. Weekend Getaway, thank you very much for your super chat. Can you say happy 8th birthday to Leo Hughes, getting a new Leo 8 Man United shirt, says Shane. Thank you very much, Shane, and happy birthday to Leo. Hope you have a good day. And Tommy says, I think you're spot on, best show. And yeah, but you know what? I think I feed. Well, I don't think. I know. And I say this on the live show. It's a privilege to do these shows, but I do read the live chat. I don't read them all out because there's too many, but I do feed off the chat, and it's a very intelligent chat. And it annoys me that, there's people with access to Manchester United because they got a job at a certain outlet. You pick a journalist's name, they're not in the press conference because of them. They're in the press conference because of the organisation that they work for that's had press access for years. So they fall into this trap that they're wonder journalists, and some of them are very, very good, but they're only in there because they work for the outlet that has had access for years. And it makes them complacent. It makes them, because they already know, because they know they're there every week, because they work for whoever, they're complacent, and I think sometimes they are apathetic in relation to, they don't ask the questions that should be asked, and they don't scrutinise the problems that are there. It's only our community that's talking about the fact that Richard Arnold said a year ago this summer transfer window was going to be a challenge, and now it's a challenge. But no one's talking about that. They're listening to the financial fair play thing, which is a nonsense. The financial fair play thing is irrelevant. It's not true. Man United are not spending money because of financial fair play. Man United are not spending money because we're run by complete and utter cretins who don't know what they're doing. But I've heard who apart from us, and it started last night, have been saying, well, we knew this transfer window was going to be like this because Richard Arnold told us. The CEO of the club a year ago said this summer transfer window was going to be a challenge. They knew a year ago, and they've walked us into it. Mark, I know you say you like an Arna from Man City final, but Premier League is different. It's a marathon with lots of games and pressure, so I think it's a mistake because weekend getaway. And I had a dream last night. We had a game of knockouts. Mark was there just going through players after the first round. Mark was doing an ad, but was dressed in Star Wars Dantooine costumes, says Joey. That wasn't a dream. It was actually true. It really happened. I love your content, Mark, says Show. Hi, Mark. Today's my birthday. Do you think by using financial fair play as a reason, actually negotiating tactic to avoid Man United tax and to get a reduced price, says Joey? No, I think Manchester United are using the financial fair play story as a reason to try and make you all think that we've got no money to spend because they don't want to spend any money. This one is interesting. This is the thing I was talking about at the start of the show that I wanted to dive into a little bit more. So Man United are prepared to sell Fred, who has attracted interest from Fulham since May. I don't like this. I don't like this deal, to be honest. I think that if it's a choice between, let's just be what we are meant to be, and what we are, which is a community here. So, who would you sell? Let's just do this because you know what I'm gonna say. But who would you sell? You have to sell one, Fred or McTominay. Who would you sell? I don't think we've done this summer, so let us know. Who would you sell if you had to sell one of those two players this summer? Now, the assumption would also be that one of them stays because we're only going to sign Mason Mount in the midfield. So, which way would you go? Man United are prepared to sell Fred because he's entering the final year of his contract. We know that, and there is interest to get Fred from certainly Fulham, maybe another couple of clubs. I personally think Saudi Arabia would be all over Fred as well, but I don't know whether he'd want to go there. So I think we'll cash in on Fred because there's actually interest in Fred. But the same article from the Manchester Evening News goes on to say McTominay has been linked with a number of moves this summer, but Man United have not planned for his sale, as he is their youngest senior midfield and would find it difficult to afford another to replace him. I mean, look, let's not pretend that that's just a journalist in the Manchester Evening News. But, I mean, how disappointing, how reflective and how symbolic is that of Manchester United, that basically, an outlet that will have good sources with United is saying that we're selling Fred because he's old and somebody wants to buy him, but we're keeping McTominay because he's young and we won't be able to buy a replacement. I mean, this is Manchester United Football Club. The amount of stories over the last 10 years that end up being true that would never happen at a proper competent football club is overwhelming. We almost drown in them every week. I mean, I tire, and I'm sure you do, I tire of seeing the evidence of how we are not a football club. And, you know, there's plenty of reasons, and we can all write a book on why United can't win the league title. But there is a massive reason in itself, and it doesn't just apply to Scott McTominay. You know, we're not going to sell McTominay, even though there's interest in him, because we haven't got the money to replace him and he's young. I mean, what does that even mean? So you're not going to sell a player that's not good enough, even when there's offers for him, because if you sell him, you can't buy a replacement, and also you want to keep him because he's young. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say this in a less offensive way, but he's not good enough. He's just not good enough. I can't remember. It feels like he's been at the club for 30 years. I think it's about 5 or 6, and he's never really been good enough. He's scored the odd good goal, you know, Arsenal, City, but he ain't good enough. He hasn't had a good game for United this calendar year. His last good game was about September, so he's not good enough. He should be playing for West Ham. I said last night, West Ham would be a really good deal for him. It's around his level. He is a Scottish international. He does put a lot of effort in. He's a model professional, and apparently he's a really nice guy. This is not personal. And you know what? The fact that some of these players take it personally shows you the mentality they've actually got. They're driven by what other people think about them. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Living your life like that is a joke, especially as a professional footballer. Why are you bothered about, you know, I'm not going to say it's not fair, but, you know, there are genuinely footballers at Man United who have issues with journalists and, you know, probably myself, probably others, because they say they're not that good. You play for Manchester United. Grow up. Grow up. The only opinion that matters is the one that's looking back at you in the mirror. And that's not when you've got your girlfriend in for a shower. I'm talking about in the bathroom, on your boyfriend, I don't know. But, you know, or them. But the reality is, in the mirror, in the bathroom, when you're on your own, the only opinion that matters is yours. You know, what are you listening to everybody else for? You should know you're good enough or not good enough. And if you think you're good enough, that's a big problem. So it defies logic that I think you can almost symbolise, and Globetrotter says, going on pre-season tour without a goalkeeper and a striker is the biggest screw you to Ten Hag from Arnold and Murta. Cannot happen. What's the point in going on tour with the squad we have now, says Globe. Well, it's not pre-season, is it? I think that, I've said this before, a pre-season tour is either a pre-season tour to prepare you for the new season, or it's an exhibition. We've used it as an exhibition in the past. Mo, welcome to the Members Club. Mo's gifted 5 memberships. Legend Mo, welcome to the Members Club, Ahmad. And McTominay should technically be sold, as it would be straight profit for a player from the academy as opposed to taking a loss for Fred, says EJ. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. But in the past, pre-season tours for United sometimes are an exhibition because it comes fast off a major tournament. So next summer, we'll have the Euros. And wherever that tour is, a lot of our players will only just be coming back from the Euros. So sometimes a tour is an exhibition. This should not be an exhibition. This should be a proper, hard-working pre-season tour with players that Ten Hag's building the season for. Well, if he doesn't get any more players in, that's not going to be the case. But I think you can symbolise this summer transfer window on one thing, really. If Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire and Anthony Martial are part of the first team squad against Wolves, we've failed. Because those 3 players shouldn't be at the club. They're all sellable. They're all not part of Ten Hag's plans. And they're all really holding us back. Those 3 players, how many of those 3 will be part of the first team squad against Wolves? It could be all 3. And I think that symbolises something that's not the players' fault and it's not Ten Hag's fault, it's the club's fault. He will have told them to move those players on. It's well known that those players are up for sale. But if he can't sell them because there's no replacements, then he's probably not going to end up selling them, is he? And look, I really like Martial. You know what? I actually quite like using those 3 players because I really do like Martial. There's a reason why he needs to be moved on, and we all saw it last year. He can't be relied on. You can't rely on Martial. So what's the point? I don't care how good he is. You can't rely on him. So he's got to go. Maguire's got to go because he's 4th choice centre-back and, you know, he wants to play for England and there's value there. And McTominay needs to go because there is value there, and again, he's just not good enough. So those three players, if this is Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, they're gone. They're gone already. But United, how can you progress as a team when you keep players that aren't good enough? I mean, it's the most simple interpretation of the problem that exists. How can you keep players that aren't good enough and expect to progress? I mean, some people would say, Mark, it's not just McTominay, Maguire, Martial. There's actually a lot more. Jadon Sancho should be in there as well. Fred, if he stays, Brandon Williams, Dean Henderson. Some people would say, well, more than that. They might start talking about people like Eriksen or whatever. I wouldn't go that far, but what I'm saying is there are a lot of players in that club that the more players you keep that shouldn't be there, the more problems you've got next season because they're not being replaced. And other clubs around us are doing a lot of business to do that. Fred's contract literally ends in June 2024 and he's 30. We should 100% sell him first, as the same with Maguire, as we already have Lindelof, says Dool. Thank you very much. Chelsea bought Koulibaly last year and already shipped him out after 1 year. Well, yeah, you know what, Suvik, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot to be said about Chelsea and how they run their football club, but also there's a lot to be said about, they do... they're very erratic, Chelsea, under Todd Boehly, but on the other hand, they're also very, ruthless in what they do. And hope things get better for us next week. If Ollie was still here, we'd be singing When the Going Gets Tough, Ollie Gets Rough, says Naveen. What a song. 79% of you would sell McTominay over 21% of you, Fred. I mean, that's... if you're Scott McTominay, that's pretty damning, isn't it? And the fact that he's... I don't know whether this is true, but why would you not be knocking on the door to go to a club where you can play first team football as well? Like, the writing's so obvious on the wall. The problem I have is that these players don't knock on the door to go as well. Their mentality is weak. And I'm not talking about Scott McTominay specifically here. That's not fair to say that McTominay... I don't know whether McTominay's knocked on the door or not. But what I do know is that there are players in that team who are just happy just to sit as fourth choice or on the bench and earn good money because it's Manchester United. They have a very short career. They've worked very hard for that career. They are in the elite set of footballers in this country because they play in the Premier League and they're in the Man United squad. But in 5 years' time, most of them will be finished. Why would you not go and play football? I don't get it. And if I was Eric Ten Hag, the person who knocks on my door is the person with the right attitude. The person who stays quiet that I have to invite into my office has got the wrong attitude. Per-Eric Klassen's just gifted 20 memberships. You're an absolute legend, mate. Thank you very much for that. If you got one, make sure you say thank you. Somebody just mentioned Donny van der Beek. This sauce belongs in my ketchup cupboard. AC Milan are interested in Donny van der Beek. Milan, a manager, is a big fan of the Dutchman, and the Italian side could pay 20 million euros for him. Look, I think we'd all take 20 million euros for Donny van der Beek, but I don't think there's any truth in that story at the moment. Look, van der Beek could be a nice player to move on because at least with McTominay and Fred, there's a conversation there because they've been in and around the first team last season. Donny van der Beek really just is a player that's picking up a wage that is just not good enough. And I think if you could pick up a bit of money for him, then that would be a positive. The interesting thing is, and I tweeted this yesterday, in relation to Donny van der Beek, and it is too late, I'm not saying that it can change now, but I think if Donny van der Beek had played in a team with a high line and that allows its midfielders to, play in between the lines of the attack and the midfield, picking up spaces, that's what Donny van der Beek would have revelled in. And what I mean is, if you do get an Arna and you've got Casemiro, then I think the two midfielders can push forward a little bit, and I think that would have suited Donny really, really well. I just don't know why Solskjaer signed him. I mean, it's not the first time that Solskjaer signed players that he had no idea how to use. I mean, Jadon Sancho came into the team and he was on the bench most of the first 3 months he was here. Donny van der Beek came in on the bench most of the time he was there. I just, there's over £100 million worth of players there with Sancho and Donny. I feel sorry for those players because I think they're good players, but I've said it so many times. United do, well, I don't know whether it's changed now, but United over the last decade have spent a lot of money on players that don't suit the system, and we've done no homework on that, and no homework on the player's mentality either. It's almost been like, what's that game where you put the blindfold on and you try and hit the donkey with a stick? It's nothing to do with Maguire. What are you talking about? They do it at parties. Oh, yeah. Hire Harry Maguire tonight, this afternoon for your kid's party. You can hit him with a stick and a blindfold. Oh, no. What's it called? Panata. That's what it's called. Hit the Panata. Yeah. That's a bit like Man United's transfer window. They put the blindfold on. The blindfold is the fact that we don't know what we're doing. The stick is the budget. And then the Panata is, let's just see if we can hit it. And if we hit it and it breaks and we get something, great. But yeah, there's no logic to a lot of the signings we've done. And you can go back. I mean, look at the Di Maria signing. That was ridiculous, and that was under Van Gaal. So some of the signings we've made have been ridiculous over the years, absolutely ridiculous. And as well, can I just say, don't forget, John Murtaugh's been at this football club since 2013. Some people think he's only been here for a year. He's been here for a long time. In fact, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when Murtaugh was made director of football, didn't even make a big deal of it. He said, well, he's sort of been doing that job for years anyway. So the recruitment's crap. It's crap. Absolutely crap. Big Samps, thank you very much. 11 months member. Yes, Marco, happy Sunday. Have a nice roast later. I am having a nice roast later, Lee, but a meal. And look, I suppose, can you do a show on Ahmad and Palestri? What does the future hold for these guys at United? I don't do those sort of shows, Rahul, because I think they're quite boring. That's just not my type of content. I don't sit there and go, let's talk about Ahmad and Palestri for half an hour and what's going to happen when I've got no control on it and I don't actually know. What I will tell you as a little glimpse here is that Ahmad has got fantastic potential and Palestri has got fantastic potential, but I don't know that they're going to be able to... They've got to play first team football next season, and I can't see, well, both of them won't. One of them's going to go on loan, that will be Palestri, and Ahmad will have a chance on tour for Ten Hag to assess where he's at, and then a conversation will take place where it's going to be, do you fancy starting on the bench for United this season and seeing if you can find a way in, and I can't make any promises, or would you fancy going on loan to a team in the Premier League where you'll play every week? And I think that will be the conversation with Ahmad. It will all be about what he does on tour. Both very, very, very exciting players. Again, both bought by Solskjaer with no bloody clue what to do with them. I mean, we've literally just been speaking about that with Sancho and Donny. Palestri and Ahmad, right at the end of a transfer window, no logic to it at all. It's because we'd missed out on Sancho, brought them in, didn't have a bloody clue what to do with them. Had no idea what to do with them at all. So it feels to me like with Ahmad and Palestri, this is the first summer where they'll actually get some direction from Man United, and yet they've been here for 3 years. It's crazy. They've been at the club for 3 years, Palestri and Ahmad. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how again, they're a great example of how United will just buy players and not have a clue what they're doing. What about Alanga's as Razor? Well, again, you could almost add Alanga into the Maguire and McTominay and Martial story, couldn't you? If he's here at the start of the season, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know. But I am genuinely worried about the transfer window. I know Faz did the show last night about the concerns around whether the money's there for Onana. I just refuse. So basically, there was a story last night saying that now United have spent £60 million on Mason Mount. They've only got about £50 million left to spend without selling players. And there was a bit of a panic about that because it might not be enough to buy Onana, and how do you buy a striker? Well, the striker's the priority. So I don't know where the money for Onana comes from. However, what I would say is it's not all doom and gloom. I refuse to believe that if Erik Ten Hag had a budget of 120 million, he would look at the way we played last season and say, my priority is an Eriksen upgrade. Just think of it like that. If you looked at United last season and you had £120 million to spend, would your priority be an Eriksen upgrade? Now, I'm not saying we don't need an Eriksen upgrade, but it's not going to be a priority. It's going to be a striker. It's going to be, I need somebody to cover for Casemiro. It's going to be a goalkeeper. It's going to be a second striker. It's going to be a centre-back. You're not going to blow half your budget on an Eriksen upgrade. You're just not. So I don't think that you know, I don't actually believe that the transfer budget is in jeopardy and we can't afford anybody else after Mason Mount, because why would you sign Mason Mount? He's a good player, but what I mean is he's not. It's not like we didn't have people that could do the Mount role. You'd keep Fred for another year, wouldn't you? And go for the priority. Put McTominay in the 90% club to stay at United. He's guaranteed to leave if you do, says Nigel. Well, I'm happy to put him in the 90% club then. But yeah, we will spend 200 million to do it. I've said that for a while. So yeah, we will. Anyway, look, let's see what today brings. I've got no idea what the week brings. Ultimately, on a sad note, remember we haven't announced Mason Mount yet. So United are probably going to sell you the Mason Mount deal all week. They've got to do the medical. They've got to do the unveiling. They've got to do the quotes. They've got to do the holding up of the shirt, the photography. That's probably United's next week, if we're being honest. Also, they've got to put the story out about Mason Greenwood leaving on loan, and they've also got to put out the fact that David De Gea is leaving as well. So, you know, you can almost predict United's next week. I might be wrong. There might be some excitement in there, but, you know, I think next week is going to be a lot about that. And of course, we're in July now. We're in early July now. We should be doing business, and we should be doing it quick. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. And don't forget, we've got our 8 o'clock show tonight, as per usual. And if anything happens in between, we will go live. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic day, you legends. And I'll speak to you all in a bit.